When the B-52 Stratofortress made its first flight in 1952, no one could have imagined that this bomber would survive not only the Cold War, but the turn of the century as well. Today, more than 70 years later, it not only remains in service, but is also undergoing another modernization that can ensure its combat effectiveness for several more decades. Now let's take a look at how an ordinary turboprop project from the mid-20th century became a symbol of the strategic power of the 21st century. Like a significant portion of America's iconic aircraft fleet, the B-52 was primarily driven by the need to neutralize the threat posed by the Soviet Union. The choice in favor of who would provide the U.S. Air Force with new nuclear bombers was obvious. By World War II, Boeing had become a household name thanks to their famous B-17 Flying Fortress, which successfully carried out missions in the Pacific and European theaters of war. And while the company was rolling off its nearly 4,000th B-29 Superfortress bomber in November of 1945, Air Materiel Command presented its requirements for a new bomber, which was intended to be a replacement for the Convair B-36 Peacemaker strategic bomber. The list of characteristics included availability of a crew of 5 or more turret gunners and 6-man relief, airspeed of 300 miles per hour at 34,000 feet, combat radius of 5,000 miles, armament in the form of 20mm cannons and 10,000 pounds of various munitions. Then, within a few months, speed requirements increased to 400 miles per hour, flight range to 12,000 miles, and the need to deliver nuclear weapons was added to the command's list of wants. The main stumbling block was the choice between turboprop and turbojet engines. Military Command was concerned about the high fuel consumption of the jet engines of the day, ordering Boeing to use one of the first B-52 prototypes, the 46440, which replaced Westinghouse J-40 turbojet engines with turboprops. On this basis, even the generals argued with each other more than once. General Howard A. Craig, Deputy Chief of Staff for Material, was not enthusiastic about the B-52 jet, believing that these engines were not yet advanced enough to allow them to skip the turboprop intermediate stage. While Deputy Chief of Air Staff for Research and Development, General Curtis LeMay, in contrast, argued in favor of more powerful jet engines, insisting that range problems could be solved a little later simply by improving the aircraft's airframe, and demanded that the proposed tandem pilot seating arrangement in the style of the earlier Boeing B-47 Stratojet bomber be changed to a side-by-side arrangement to reduce pilot fatigue and improve morale during long flights. As a result of all these disputes and deep-thinking requests for the characteristics of the device, after all, the edits settled on a speed of 500 miles per hour and a flight range of 8,000 miles. Near the end of the Stratofortress design, there was even a moment when Boeing engineers George S. Scherer, Art Carlson, Von Blumenthal, Maynard Pennell, Bob Whittington, and Vice President of Engineering Ed Wells bought the necessary materials at a hobby store and designed the B-52 prototype literally garage-style at the Van Cleve Hotel in Dayton, Ohio. Based on the basic layout of the B-47 Stratojet with 35-degree swept wings, 8 engines were set up with 4 underwing nacelles and bicycle landing gear with wingtip outrigger wheels. The result of the Dayton weekend was the ideal shape of a subsonic aircraft made of balsa wood and painted silver. The military was very pleased with the work of the engineers, and the B-52 went into print. The first Stratofortress took to the skies in April of 1952, 3 years after the USSR developed its first atomic weapon. In June of 1955, the bomber entered service with the 93rd Heavy Bombardment Wing at Castle Air Force Base, California. And by January 1957, 3 U.S. Air Force B-52s, flying at an average speed of 525 miles per hour, successfully carried out Operation Power Flight, setting a record for the first non-stop flight around the world on a jet engine in 45 hours, 19 minutes. This one, of course, was not the last. Over the next few years, the B-52 set other world records, such as the world record for 12,532 miles without refueling, flying from Kadena Air Base, Okinawa Prefecture, Japan, to Torrejon Air Base, Spain. To date, the only modification of the Stratofortress in U.S. service is the B-52H, which emerged as a derivative of the B-52G with the same basic airframe but new Pratt & Whitney TF-33P3 turbofan engines. These, despite initial reliability problems corrected by 1964 as part of the Hot Fan program, provided the bomber with significantly better performance and fuel economy than the Pratt & Whitney J57 turbojet. Thanks to the new engines, the B-52's top speed increased to 650 miles per hour, cruise speed increased to 509 miles per hour, and its range without refueling was now about 8,800 miles. Additionally, the model received a new tail turret armed with a single 20mm M61A1 Vulcan rotary cannon, an avionics suite optimized for low-altitude operation, including advanced capability radar, ACR, with terrain-following function, and a new fire control system. The U.S. Air Force continues to rely on the B-52, affectionately calling it the Buff, as it remains the most effective and cost-effective heavy bomber in the absence of sophisticated air defense, especially when it comes to post-Cold War U.S. missions against countries with limited defensive capabilities. These bomb carriers have not only been integral to the success of ground operations like Iraqi Freedom, but also have the highest mission readiness rate of the three types of heavy bomber operated by the U.S. Air Force during the 2000 to 2001 period. The no less legendary Rockwell B-1 Lancer had an average readiness rate of 53.7%, and the new-fashioned Northrop B-2 Spirit stealth bombers had an average readiness rate of 30.3% versus an impressive 80.5% for the Stratofortress. But even legends need updates. That's why in April of 2020, the U.S. Air Force issued a request for proposals for 608 commercial engines, launching the Commercial Engine Re-Engineering Program, CERP, under which General Electric offered its CF3410 and Passport turbofan engines. Pratt & Whitney showed up with its PW800, and Rolls-Royce offered the BR725 designated F130. By September 2021, the U.S. Air Force chose the latter as the winner, announcing plans to buy 650 of these engines for $2.6 billion. Despite the fact that the Air Force had previously considered the option of swapping the bombers from 8 engines to 4, CERP still retained all 8 of them. While some industry experts believe that 4-engine operation would be more efficient, opponents rightly point out that such an upgrade would require a redesign of the airframe, as well as additional changes to systems and control surfaces. This in turn greatly increased the project timeline, complexity, and cost, which the U.S. Air Force certainly did not want. In addition to new engines and nacelles, one of the most radical upgrades will be the installation of the new AN/APG-79B4 ACER radar in the B-52J, which replaced older mechanically scanned arrays. The new AN/APG-79 radar will give the B-52J significantly better radar range, accuracy, and most importantly, resistance to enemy countermeasures, not to mention general awareness of what's happening on the battlefield. Well, the immediately noticeable update was the return of the bomber's nose to its classic look. We're talking about completely eliminating the pair of fairings under the nose, the right one housing the forward-looking infrared system, FLIR, and the left one housing the Westinghouse AN AVQ-22 low light level television, LLL-TV. Together, they formed the Electro-Optical Viewing System, EVS, which helped crews fly safely at extremely low altitudes. However, it was completely replaced by more modern targeting pods, Lockheed Martin Sniper or Northrop Grumman Lightning mounted on pylons under the left wings of B-52H bombers. The rendering presented by Boeing in 2022 left many questions about whether the underwing stores pylons, which lack any sort of fine detail, were made to demonstrate a specific design or simply placeholders. The one under the right wing, which is not clearly visible, may be intended to demonstrate loading with some kind of large missile. For example, the AGM-183A air-launched rapid response weapon, Arrow, hypersonic missile, if this project had not been cut in FY 2025. It's pity because in March of 2024, the testing of the AGM-183A Arrow from a B-52H near Guam was done successfully. Although this does not negate what the Air Force talked about acquiring new stores pylons for the B-52 fleet with a higher payload, and Boeing clearly started working on its own design called Hercules, which allows the aircraft to carry 20,000 pounds on each wing and adapt not only to expand the arsenal of existing weapons, but also hypersonic missiles that will soon be available to the U.S. Air Force. The most vicious weapons of the B-52 were, are, and will be nuclear weapons. Since 1971, modifications of the B-52G and B-52H have received the ability to carry up to 20 AGM-69 SRAM nuclear missiles, and a little later they were replaced by AGM-86 missiles. And even though the B-52H bombers that remained in service were subsequently stripped of their nuclear fangs back in 2010, voices from U.S. Congress about returning these celestial giants to nuclear status have been heard more often recently. In the summer of 2024, there was talk of restoring the nuclear capability of at least 30 of the 76 U.S. Air Force B-52H bombers, which would soon receive an upgrade to the B-52J modification. They'll be equipped with the latest air-launched cruise missiles with a nuclear warhead AGM-181 long-range standoff weapon. The only question is, does the U.S. Air Force still have the enthusiasm to rearm its old B-52s with a nuclear arsenal, even if they've extended their service until the early 2050s? Especially if today's military command is busy preparing fresh Lockheed B-21 Raider bombers for operation? Only time will show. Do you think the Stratofortress will be able to supplant the younger B-2 Spirit and B-21 Raider, regaining its place at the top of the nuclear triad? Share your guesses in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more content like today's. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.